There are so many different records in sports that seem like they're unbreakable. One of those records is the all-time receiving yards record in the NFL. Jerry Rice, the consensus GOAT of wide receivers, has the most receiving yards all-time with 22,895 receiving yards. In second place is Larry Fitzgerald. He's an all-time great receiver, and he has 17,492 receiving yards. The difference between the most receiving yards and the second most is 5,403 yards. Multiple seasons worth of receiving yards separate the first and second most all time. The difference in yards between Rice at 1 and Fitzgerald at 2 is more yards than the difference between Fitzgerald and Charlie Joyner, who was the 29th most receiving yards all time. The receiving yards record does look to be unbreakable, but there's been so many records in sports that were once thought to be unbreakable and have since been overcome. Throughout the years, there have been many legendary receivers that people at one point thought might have had a chance. Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson, Julio Jones, all at one point potential contenders for the crown, but in the end, they could not reach the heights that the GOAT Jerry Rice did. Once again though, a contender enters the ring. You already know who I'm talking about. You read the title of the video. This man has the most receiving yards all time through his first 5 seasons, outpacing Jerry Rice by almost 1,100 yards. And this man has the 7th most receiving yards all time through a player's first 6 seasons, and he's only played in 5 seasons. I'm talking about Justin Jefferson, the best receiver in the NFL. Yes, I know what Jamar Chase did this season, but there's a pretty big difference between having Joe Burrow throwing you the ball and Sam Darnold throwing you the ball. Just in case you're thinking that Jamar has a better chance than Jefferson to pass Rice, I gotta let you know that through his first 4 seasons, Jamar has the 3rd most receiving yards all time. And he has 400 less receiving yards than Jettas did in his first 4 seasons, and Jamar's even played in 2 more games than Jefferson. There's no question about it, Justin Jefferson has the best chance of all active NFL players to pass the all-time receiving yards record. What would he have to do to actually pass it though? Let's get the simple math out of the way, because after that, it's a lot of speculation. Through Jefferson's first 5 seasons, he's averaging 96.5 yards per game. If he keeps up this same exact pace for the next 10 years, while also playing all 17 games every single season, that would give Jefferson 23,837 yards at the end of his 15th season, which would surpass Rice's record. So all he has to do is play exactly as good as he is right now for another decade and never get injured. He does that, and he's the greatest receiver of all time. And when you put it like that, the record really does sound unbeatable. But that's just me looking at it in the simplest way possible. There's no way to predict if he's going to stay healthy or not. Football has the most injuries of all professional sports. It's more likely than not he misses games in the future. I mean, he's already missed out on 7 games just last season. Another thing that's impossible to predict is how long is Jefferson going to be this good for? The smart bet, it would be to say he's going to be this good for a very long time, because more likely than not, that's what's going to happen. There are plenty of amazing players that have had their skill level just completely fall off a cliff though. On the opposite end of that spectrum, there are a lot of all-time greats who have had their best seasons later on in their careers. Jerry Rice had his most receiving yards in a single season in his 11th season when he was 33 years old. He also had 1,200 yards in a season when he was 40 years old. And I'm not saying Jefferson's gonna go do something like that, but it had to be mentioned because that is just absurd. Then there's the question of the quarterback situation in Minnesota. Jefferson is locked into Minnesota until the end of the 2028 season, so he's got no choice but to play with whatever quarterback Minnesota puts out there. Whether or not it's Sam Darnold, JJ McCarthy, or any other potential quarterback, Jefferson's gonna ball out. Though it would help if Jefferson got to play with 2 of the all-time best quarterbacks throughout the majority of his career. Even though he isn't playing with the top quarterback, Jefferson does have the benefit of getting that extra game in each season since the schedule is now 17 games, and there's a lot of talk about a potential 18-game season. With how high Jefferson needs to climb to reach the top of that mountain, each game played is going to be extremely important. So do I actually think that Justin Jefferson will pass Jerry Rice for the most receiving yards of all time? Probably not. I just said earlier the guy had over 1,200 yards in his age 40 season. Jerry Rice is the undisputed best receiver of all time. We live in a world though where unbreakable records have been broken, so maybe it can happen. I know I'll be rooting for him.